Hello and welcome to the first video of a VR tutorial series in Unreal Engine 4. And to be doing these tutorials, we're going to be making a small zombie shooter game. So you'll learn some stuff and hopefully have a small project game by the end of it. Now, in this tutorial, we're going to be creating player movement, because that is very important. If you can't move your player, you're not going to be able to do much, unless that's the objective of the game, is to just be still and shoot objects or whatever. Regardless, you're going to want to open up a new Unreal project and select the VR template, and you're going to be greeted with this map here. We don't need this map, but what we are going to need is the motion control map. So if we go to Virtual Reality Blueprint folder, go to Maps, and we go to Motion Controller Map, we'll be greeted with this map here. Now, if I start this map, we have a nice map here, but I cannot move. I can't move. I can grab and I can interact with those objects over there, but I can't move to those objects to be able to interact with them. So we're going to be giving this player some movement. Now, if I there's two ways you can do this. You can edit this character right here, motion controller pawn. If you choose to edit him, you can do all your code inside of this blueprint and not change a single thing in the scene, but I'm not going to be doing it that way. So if you are just going to be editing this pawn, just skip ahead to when we're doing the code. If you want to create your own side character, then or your own character, so you can have your own name and reference it, then don't skip this part, but it shouldn't take us too long. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to copy this motion controller pawn, come to our contents, make a new folder called characters, paste him in there. Now I'm going to rename him entity player character, and now we have this character. But if I did code in here and I hit play, nothing would happen because this is still the other motion control pawn. So we need to change that. To do that, come out here, blueprint class, game mode base. We're going to name this game mode name. Now inside of that game mode, come over here to default pawn and change it to your newly created character. I'll compile that, save that. Now if we go to edit, project settings, type in default. Now, I guess I already put it there, but it will be game mode. You want to select that and change it to your game mode that you just made. Now with that done, we can move him, drag this into play, and now our player should work just fine. Now, into your pawn, we're not going to be doing any teleportation, so I'm going to remove everything regarding teleportation as the movement method. So that means I'm going to get rid of these as well, and I'll get rid of this. Now let me resize this real quick, like that. Cool. I'll name this Break Objects. I'll slide this up here to make it nice and neat. Cool. Now on to the actual movement component, or movement mechanic. Now if you go to Edit, Project Settings, come down to Input, you'll see you'll have some of these axis mappings. They already set up the left controller X and Y and the right controller X and Y for you, as well as buttons for teleportation, but we're not going to be using that. So don't worry about those two. These motion controller thumb buttons, they have set up for Vive, Oculus Touch, Valve Index, Mixed Reality, even Oculus Go and Daydream. So it's nice that they include a lot of different input methods for different VR headsets right off the bat. I have the Oculus, so obviously my game will be tapping into the Oculus Touch stuff, but still, it's already there for all of them, so even if I plugged in a Vive, it would work. We'll be coming back to these here later down the road, because we're going to be adding some new action mappings and all that good stuff. But that's a bit different video. So, in here we're going to need 3 nodes. We're going to need motion controller thumb right on the x-axis. We're also going to need motion controller thumb left on the x-axis, and motion controller thumb left on the y-axis. So this is right controller, right joystick on the x-axis, left controller, left joystick on the x-axis, left controller, left joystick on the y-axis. I'll move these out of the way because we're not going to need those at the current moment. So before we do any code, we're going to come up here to add component, and we're going to do floating pawn movement. This will allow us to actually move the pawn. That's all you have to do with that. So for the motion controller thumb right on the x-axis right there, we're going to drag off, we're going to make a branch or an if statement, however you'd like to prefer to call it. And off of our axis value, we're going to want to do float equals float and keep that at 0. By keeping this at 0, you're basically saying if this joystick is not being touched, it's not being moved at all, then do whatever. We want to make sure this is moving, then we'll run our code. So if it's not moving, equal to 0. If that's false, or if it's false, meaning it is moving, add controller yaw input. Now off of our axis value, we're gonna do float times float. Just make that a little neater. To make these nodes, by the way, you just double click the line. And off of the 0 here, we're going to right click and promote to variable and call this turn speed. Now I'm going to take turn speed. I find that for this type of game, 1.5 works quite well. Now we just plug in our output to our value on our node here. Now theoretically, if we play this game, grab my controllers here, we should be able to rotate, which we are not rotating. Okay, yep. It didn't work because I forgot one more thing. If you select entity player character, come over here and type in yaw, and use controller rotation yaw. Check that. Compile. Now, if we jump into our game, and I use my right joystick, I can now rotate. Nice, smooth rotation. So, now let's add the movement. We're going to pull off our node here, our motion controller thumb X, or thumb left on the X-axis. We're going to drag off, we're going to do the same thing. We want to make sure that it's not equal to 0. So if that's false, meaning we are moving the joystick, we're going to add movement input. Pull off the axis value, times float. And we're going to promote this to a variable as well, called movement speed. And I find this is pretty good at 0.3. So our axis value times 0.3. Plug that into scale. Now we want to grab our camera, drag it out so we can get a reference to it, and get right vector. Now we're going to select the return value, right click it, split structure pin, do the same thing on world direction. Oh no, I'm sorry, not world direction. We're going to right click here and do make vector. Not max, make vector. Now we attach our x to x and our y to y, and then our return value to world direction. Same thing for our motion control thumb left on the y-axis. We can copy all this and we can paste it down here and hook up our axis value. Keep the movement speed variable plugged in, and instead of right vector, we're going to get forward vector. Split structure pin, x and y. We only do x and y because we're only moving on the x and y plane. We're not going to be making the character move upwards on the z plane. So just x and y, and plug that into world direction. And I believe that's everything. Yeah. So what I'll do is I'll select this, I'm going to move it up a bit. Do the same thing here. Move this up a bit. I will select all of it. Throw a comment. And we'll name it player movement. And we can size this however needed. Ooh, is that one off? It is. There we go. Now if I compile this and go to run it, now I can still rotate and I can move on with our left joystick. Now we can actually move up to these objects here, and if I reach out and hit our grip button, I can now interact with them. Cool. So that's our player movement. We got our movement with our left joystick, our rotation with our right joystick, and that is essentially all for this first video of this series. Next video we'll probably be picking up a gun and getting some of that action going, but we'll see. Other than that, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.